Very good. And probably we'll engage also New Zealand and Canada because, yeah, I don't know about UK, but there is a new scientist, Professor Valance, who just started in the function of chief scientist about a month ago. And anyway, okay. We just seen the breaking news that Prince Charles, you probably all have seen, has the Commonwealth heads of government approved that Prince Charles will be the new head of the Commonwealth. So I suppose that takes us straight to a few minutes to recap the CPTM open house started last Friday, and on the spotting signals for leveraging data for good, as Sir Martin Lang was saying. And probably we'd like to know from Tadeusz and Rachel, or who is online, first, what did you think about the whole week, or one by one, and Lekoma, where you participated, etc. Please.
Maybe to give my parting shot, Dr. Naila, I of course want to thank you for the opportunity of organizing this open house. It has been a whole act of knowledge for us. We have participated in most of the interactions, and of course I have done most of the research so that I can learn from this. So it has been, I have actually been having my notes at day almost the conference. So, and on behalf of the entire Martin Miners and the Ugandan government as well, so we work closely with people in authority. This information is an authority itself. So I want to assure you that we have very valuable and timely information that we are going to shape our next engagement. We will be more sharper and more wiser in engaging with each department. We should be able to advance these emerging issues like the digital landscape, the issues of data science, and all the other threats that we see. So I personally have learned so much. I believe the rest of my colleagues, the Martin Miners, like Rachel and Torrance,
Okay.
equally, gotten a lot of information, yes.
Tadeo, is Rachel or Florence online, or are they online?
Yes, I'm online now.
Okay, because you see, I suppose it looks like there is a man spokesman. Is that what you agreed among yourselves? I'm sure Rachel wouldn't do that. Come, Rachel, what did you think about where you could end Florence separately? But thank you, Tadeo. Rachel.
Yes?
No. I mean, what did you think about the various parts of the CPTM Open House Week, by the way of the Commonwealth heads of government? Did you participate? This is a telecom. Did they mute it then?
No,
Hello?
They were talking just now.
Rachel, are you online? Okay. Anyway, I mean,
Just wait.
The whole point was that this week. Are you online now, Rachel?
Online.
Rachel, are you online? Florence.
Yes, I am online, Mihaila.
So here is your virtual floor. You say a few words about what you heard this week from various sessions where you could be part of it.
I'll send in my comments later. Right now, I've not put everything together.
I mean, that's a very typical, I couldn't believe you do that. The man, Tadeo, spoke and you are thinking about it.
No.
Okay. But anyway, I mean, what I wanted to say is that you are only a few representatives of the 29ers and also of SMAP partners. Professor Sam Tulia Muhika, advisor, ambassador in Somalia, and so on, and Eli General Tumwine, Minister of Security. They all need to receive some sort of review of a briefing. Yeah, you've seen how the kind of briefing we produced for His Excellency when we went to him. So similar, there is a briefing which they need to have, including His Excellency. Okay, so let's move around. Kati, what did you think about this marathon of the CPTM Open House, Open Hub?
Well, I think I'll say what I said before,
Yeah.
that what we've done during the week is raise a lot of questions. How do we define data? What do we mean by data? How does the data, how is it analysed? What relevance has complexity theory got for us? Our standards, can they be considered as part of the data set that's available? What is the value of that data? And how is the data being abused? And are we being forced into regulation which we originally didn't want? We wanted it to be free to use for everyone. But now that freedom is being abused. Therefore, do we have to move into a system of regulation? I think those are all very difficult, very interesting questions. And so I'm very grateful to having been part of it. And very grateful to everyone who's contributed to it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Nick, you are a new, not face, but a new function that you are part and parcel of us in the last few days, particularly because of the legal aspects. I mean, we haven't had up to now a lawyer with your experience part and parcel of our discussions, be it on finance, be it on, from time to time it was made reference to regulatory, to the legal, to whatever. But what did you think about the kind of things were brought in this way?
Well, I think really building...
And where do we go on?
Building apart from what Kathy was saying as well, looking at it from a perspective of a lawyer, there are two areas, I think, that struck me through the entire week and which show future work that could be done. The first is really how law may help to underpin and to facilitate the use of new technology and the use of data as widely as possible. And as the week began, I think Michaela noted that we had just seen that following on from the publication in the United States of framework laws to regulate virtual currencies, Bermuda has just published a consultation paper and draft legislation which may well then be taken up and copied by a number of Commonwealth countries in the Caribbean to promote and regulate the use of virtual currencies, to give those a legal underpinning and encourage a safe use of that. The other day we then had from Oliver Oram the analysis of blockchain, and he'd just come back from a legal conference where he had noted the tremendous need to educate the lawyers as well as to what the opportunities are for use of blockchain, as we discussed, through trade and agriculture and other means. And that is something actually that, as a lawyer, I think we should be taking forward over the next 2 years. So that's the first area, the legal facilitation of new uses of data and technology that are now becoming available. The second aspect, which Kathy touched on as well, if it is decided that it is a necessary feature of law to protect data of individuals, is how best that legal protection can be given. Is it something that it is possible to do at the most senior international level and then cascade that down through countries? Or, as I suspect, unfortunately, but also as the European Union has now started to do, and that is where, of course, the UK has to comply as well, to introduce legal protection for individuals over the data they hold and what the legitimate uses of the data can be once the individual consents to that.
Yeah, I mean that is a very important, actually, operative dimension, because which we haven't explicitly brought it in, and I don't think we would have done so were we not to go through each and every facet in the last 6 days, and this is very, very important for the next 2 years. But thank you very much, Nick, and you welcome us as CPTM networking members. You've seen that 2 companions have signed your application of networking member. I hope you bring new ones. Not too many, because we won't be able to cope with legal profession, but please. Thank you very much. Robert, as an engineer, nuclear safety, or we didn't talk about that, but
No. I don't know that I have a great deal to add to what other people have said, actually.
as a companion,
I don't think I have a great deal to add, no.
no. Okay. Well, I mean, there are quite a number of, and thank you for paying attention to a number of theoretical backgrounds which have been thrown to us during the discussions, and we don't necessarily, all of us are able to immediately react to that, so we always need somebody with your background and others with mathematics among ourselves to try to make sense of what, for instance, Professor Yanir or others are saying. So thank you very much for that. I mean, you mentioned, Kathy, about data abuse. I don't know if it's a data abuse or the data is abusing us. All this issue with data, we are being abused, as you did say also, to the point that one is fearful about anything to do with using data, using a mobile and so on. But similarly, when one goes immediately into data analytics and more so artificial intelligence and so on issues, what the danger is that even before some clarifications or robustness is brought into which applications are valid, even before that is taking place, there is so much popularization without understanding what it's all about that people are very easily, much more easier than before, fed up with the word artificial intelligence and then move on to the next one. And I think this is one of the dangers in the last few years. It happens with blockchain technology. Everybody's talking about blockchain technology, but actually to understand what is blockchain technology, you need a little bit more. But now there are other things that are being on the market or on your mobile, and you pick that up superficially and you don't understand. So there is a different age. So it may be that we need to discuss among ourselves, starting with next week, the ambition that CPTM members, smart partners have, that for the next 2 years, a program, a cooperative framework, a program for about 2 years on leveraging the value of data for good within the context of about 10 countries but shared with all the Commonwealth countries. It may be that 2 years is too long. It may be if one fixes on particular technologies which people think that they are no more fashionable in about 6 months' time. So I think that it has profound implication, the issue of data. However, around whatever technologies this issue of data will be in 2 years' time brought in, and if the banks, central banks, won't be in 2 years' time, won't have the same function that they have today, so be it. But I think the financial inclusion as a process will still be there. The need for data statistics will be still there, even more so. If the national statistics offices won't be what they are today in 2 years' time, which most likely they won't be, or the National Bureau of Standards, they won't say, no, sorry, we are only about water standards and accreditation and whatever. In 2 years' time, they are unable to fund themselves now to get consumers to pay for them. They are subsidized. In 2 years' time, they will become completely irrelevant if they are not taking a new strategic role in this digital landscape. So what we're talking about is quite a revolution, actually, an emergence of new structures. And as Keith was saying quite bluntly, Keith, well, I was very glad you said it. The politicians don't have, I don't know if you want to say it again. Are you still online?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Yeah.
Still here, Mahela.
Do you want to re-articulate what you said? Because in 2 years' time, it will be even more visible, the kind of implication what you said about the government, not dysfunction, but the structures and the politicians.
Can I
Please.
just make a point, Keith, before you do?
Yeah.
And that is that I think the divide between the developed and the developing countries is somewhat greater now than it was.
Yes.
And I think that we're alongside this initiative, we should not miss the need for science advice across the board to be available, to be made available and to be developed, particularly in the less developed countries.
Keith, before you come in again, Andrew just arrived, but hearing what Kathy said, I mean, it tallies exactly with what Omar has always said, which is that the structural and policy advice needed by certain countries is very different from what's needed by others. And if there's going to be a revolution in the next 2 years, as Mihaila was rightly implying, it could have devastating effects for those countries which aren't already in shape, you know, and the countries which are in quite good shape, on the principle of to him that hath shall be given, will be in better place to make the transformation. But
I mean,
that's just how I
you see, just by the way, the points of reference, the countries that started to develop new governance or cooperative frameworks to govern themselves are no more the countries that people were looking at. There are no models to which one could to have a base, a point of reference. The other day, St. Lucia said that they went about 3-4 times to Estonia, and I was saying, why? Well, because they are already E-driven, and they're a small country, and so on and so on. So the other day, I don't know why, but Swaziland declared themselves no more wishing to be called Swaziland, but Eswatini. Well, we don't know why exactly, but we imagine if it's E in its title, there must be something to do with digital. His Majesty will let us know. But Keith, can you tell us where we go with these limits of governance as we know it?
Well, the worry that I've got is the world is changing very quickly. It's being driven a lot by science and technology. And of course, you also get a reaction to that in certain religious fundamentalist groups. My worry is that politicians seem to be irrelevant to what all this is going on, that they talk a great deal, they get a lot of media publicity. Donald Trump's a great example of this. But when you look at who is driving the change, it's not that the government is the engine of change, but increasingly the engine of change comes from the business sector and the non-governmental sector rather than the politicians. So it seems to me that we need to be re-examining the role of government in nation building, because I think that a lot of politicians, because they're now relying so much on the market, do not see nation building as part of their task. Their job is to cope with the casualties of change, not drive the process of change itself. Very different from, say, the UK, in which I grew up in post-war London. It's a very different era now.
Yeah. You said about the government, but also the intergovernmental kind of negotiating and processes that are currently conventionally still surviving, they will be suffering, or they will have to go through a lot of changes. So within that context, the Commonwealth could very well be an experiment because it is based on, if it was to be embracing the Commonwealth's officials, so to speak, this partnership CPTM type of spirit, then there will be kind of formal outcomes achieved, but not in a typical intergovernmental negotiating processes where everybody, is negotiating the best possible outcome for oneself. So the only reason why we kind of, in parallel with the Commonwealth summit, we had not a summit, we had an open house network of networks, was just to show that there is an extremely great value in the Commonwealth if you take the Commonwealth at its best, meaning not necessarily the intergovernmental. There's nothing wrong with the intergovernmental, but really if the governments are getting out of their depths, the intergovernmental between governments will be even worse. So it's a very great satisfaction from all of us in one way or another to see that digital industry, central banks, and standards and statistics and best systems, think tanks and so on, they are kind of responding to the signals that we are trying to share and leverage in operational terms, and we will, as one of our colleagues said yesterday, what we had this week is in CPTM is the story as far, but there will be more to come. So far, so is more to come. And Omar, you have the last word. We're very, very glad to have you here, and you could have been virtually, but sorry, Keith and everybody else, you are not here with us. But Omar, you want to use the drum and close ahead of the Commonwealth Heads of Government informal retreat is closing.
3 points I wanted to what Keith said in terms of the role of government and the role of private sector is very, very true for developed for the developed countries. But the Commonwealth is represented by a whole gradation of economic development or economically developed countries, from the least to the top, and the requirement and the role of government varies according to this level of development. In many instances, getting into a new area, government has to take a lead. The trouble with that is that government does not necessarily know when to exit. So this is where, if the Commonwealth is doing what it says it should be doing on the focus, this is where the sharing of experiences on what role government play at what stage, and at what stage they withdraw. That will be very useful. Then the next thing I want to touch upon is back to this data, the data avalanche, which I said earlier. This has actually spawned two academic program in many universities: data science and data analytics, because data science are supposed to understand the whole complexity of it, how they are generated, and where do they go, and that sort of thing. And data analytics is to learn how to extract the desired information for your own purpose out of all those big data. And then out of that, with respect to science and technology, is actually to get the data to become the information as the basis of database advice with respect to science and technology. I wonder whether in science advice they always talk about evidence-based advice. So I mentioned earlier about scenario-based advice. I don't know whether database advice is actually evidence-based advice, or it may be another category.
Analytic-based advice.
So it is a data scenario-based, evidence-based, and data-based advice. And then the third one is advice, capacity to advise must be compensated or must be matched with capacity to receive and to act on good advice. So maybe there's another last one. I'm talking about the formal Commonwealth, which is what happened in London now. The impact of that to the general population is minimal. Back in our countries, I don't think the general population understand or even feel the impact of this formal Commonwealth. But we, as an operational Commonwealth, activity within the Commonwealth, all of us and those who have been involved with what we are doing, I think that is Commonwealth for us. And likewise, the NGOs, the various Commonwealth-based associations for science, for medicine, for agriculture, for telecommunication, that is their Commonwealth. But that is in silos. They do only with their specific area of interest. We deal with areas across the board, horizontally as well as vertically. So,
supply chain.
So I think we deal with issues different. And for me, this is the Commonwealth. And I think for most of us who has been following this, I think this is what Commonwealth means for us. But unfortunately, the operational Commonwealth that we are in is not necessarily always recognized by the formal Commonwealth. That is the sad part about that.
But it's just as well it isn't. Imagine they would. We would have to become formal too. But anyway, this is on a kind of. But before we finish, Omar, this is not the end of the week. The Commonwealth Summit week for CPTM Open House. It is also the kind of end and then the beginning of the 2 months or so, particularly since February, since when as a CPTM board and having had the AGM last year, there was a decision that there will be briefings and enlightenment to all the formal Commonwealth avenues that we can do, which is what we did. We did every 2 years that. and will continue to do. But this year in particularly, there was a very intensive and very high level, very high quality briefings to the foreign ministers of 53 countries. These briefings have been forwarded through the Foreign Affairs representative in London, through the High Commissioners, for their foreign ministers, or directly to foreign ministers, and also to smart partners from those countries to go and brief the officials in their countries. There were briefings made to all the heads of government who are of the Commonwealth countries being part of the basis of the CPTM framework as far as governments are concerned. Also, at the request of the chair of the Smart Partnership Movement, specific governments, heads of government, colleagues who are members of the Council of Patrons of Smart Partnership Movement had specific points emphasized which would have helped them to put across the CPTM value to the Commonwealth and beyond. And we celebrated in any ways we could. The visible ones are some pins. Everybody had a special CPTM Smart Partner pin for the Commonwealth Heads of Government 2018. And when we say everyone, it means that all the delegations have been offered about 15 pins, each and every country, and the heads of government separately their own briefing with the Smart Partners pins. One would say, is that still the case, that one needs to just do this kind of avalanche of briefings and documents in addition to the avalanche of weekly emails and daily texts and WhatsApps? Well, we've been the other day, we took part into the 38th anniversary of Zimbabwe, independence of Zimbabwe, and while we were there, and we took pictures straight away of the extraordinary enthusiasm at the Zimbabwe embassy, where the Minister of Foreign Affairs from FCO, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Zimbabwe, were addressing the mostly Zimbabweans there. We took pictures and sent them in WhatsApp to everybody, and there was reaction straight away. But Chris Katsander, the new ambassador, said, "Do you have a document about to give it to the minister now?" Well, I did have a document, and I did have a pin. So it just says that we are living in a hybrid kind of type of age where, and I think that will continue. With that, we'd like to thank very much for the tremendous effort and support of the CPTM Hub staff, for Nick, who is a new corporate affairs in the CPTM Smart Partners Hub, taking over from Mervyn Couve, who also we thank to him very much for the last year's contributions. Thank very much to Kit Berdes, who is finance advisor on the committee, but also took quite a lot of interest in the last 2 months. But above all, I think thank very much to the very small hub team, and probably it's better we are very small, but sometimes it's very fragile because one has flus and things, or dentist appointments. So if that happens, then the entire paper for the Foreign Affairs Minister will have to wait. So that did happen, but somehow we were able to achieve everything we wanted, and thank very much to Amira, to Jesse, to Jonathan, who was able to mobilize us continuously on the phone. Thank very much to Njulwa, who supported the smart communication. And thank you very much for the marathon webcasts who was led by Joseph, weekly, but particularly this week. And of course, thank very much to everybody else who is part of the open house, particularly the Namibian team. So Fritz, who is a networker, part of the our hub since last year when events of this nature take place. The thing is, he got the spirit of it. So if we think about anybody to come in to be with us when we have a celebration of this kind, we can't think of anybody else except somebody who already got the spirit. And Fritz is here, and he's also from Namibia alongside Julua. But in addition to all this, were we not to be able to have daily press releases, which would have allowed those who received daily the webcasts and the few notes distilled as it happened, we wouldn't have been able, even ourselves, to know where we are. So, John Hutchinson, thank you very much, John. You are a real smart partner, and you are you're not just media, you are just, how do you call you? You are a smart communicator. You are the smartest communicator we know. Thank you very much for putting up with all our enthusiasm and being able to capture this for those who are not with us. And with this, I think we invite you.
We should give a bit of clapping after what's been